Okay, Kate, looks like you're on.
Okay. Well, let me see. I don't know.
Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. If you want to go up, you may be able to adjust your mic on your computer
I know, I think
up
in
on the top of the screen there. That little little speaker icon on your Mac. By the time, you know what I'm talking about.
the speaker.
If you go up there, it'll say Sound Preferences, and when that opens up, there should be an input, and on your mic you can slide that slider a little bit and make it a little louder, I think.
So I don't even think this is letting me get the mic source from here. It says mic source. It only says default internal microphone built in or internal microphone built in. Does that make sense?
It does. Can you go like on your computer up to that up at the top bar, and like you got your Wi-Fi, and then there's the little speaker. You see that?
Yep.
Okay. You click on that and go to Sound Preferences.
Oh no, this is Bluetooth.
Well, does it still show up as Sound Preference? Does Sound Preferences still show up?
No, I don't have sound preferences. Hold on.
Okay.
I wonder if
But there's not a speaker button.
No. Maybe
okay. How about under Preferences on your computer? You have a Mac, right?
Yep. I'm under
Okay.
systems preferences.
Yeah, in the systems preferences, if you go to sound, is your mic listed there?
No.
Under input?
It just says internal microphone.
Yep. So it's not, that one's not registering. Is it showing up under Bluetooth?
No, that's so odd. Let me check something.
Good morning, everyone. We're about 2 minutes away, so we'll be right with you. Good morning, Maureen. Sandra, if you were able to get on, could you send me a chat as the moderator?
Yeah, I don't know how to fix that.
We still sound good. All right. I am on. All right, let's get that on there. Okay. All right. Kate, you want to flip your camera on?
Oh yeah, hold on 1 second.
Okay. That's okay.
Can you hear?
I'll,
Like, Can you hear
Yep.
me okay?
We can. I think so. I can. If everybody else wants to give a thumbs up to that.
I feel like if Brooke can just text me and let me know if, yeah,
Can hear, but okay.
I gotta figure out. Let me just see one last thing, and then
Okay. A lot of thumbs up.
we'll have to figure out offline, Tony.
Okay. Sure.
I,
Yep.
I don't want to keep doing it like that.
Yep. Well, Sandra's with us as the moderator, so we'll begin as soon as you flip on so we can see your bright, shiny face today.
Okay, let's see. All right, does that sound any better?
Say some more.
Uh,
We're getting a lot of yes, and they can hear you pretty well, so.
okay. Oh, let me turn on my microphone.
Hello from Oklahoma.
Oh, now my camera's not. Oh no, just kidding. My camera's working. Oh goodness.
Your security tape off.
What? I forgot my tape. I forgot my tape. That's the problem. All right.
Wow, we got Ontario, Canada, and Oakville, Ontario, and Oklahoma, Texas. Howdy. Scranton, PA,
Good.
California.
All right, good. Well, let's do a quick check-in, since I always think it's fun to check in and see with people how they're feeling. Use that one word to describe best how they're feeling today, just so we get a gauge. Where is everyone today? How's everyone feeling?
One word, best describe how you're feeling today.
One word.
Trapped.
Trapped.
Wow. Fatigued, bored, blessed, focused. There you go, Bill.
Oh, focused. I like it.
Energized, a little overwhelmed. I hear you there. Eager. Meh. I guess I didn't know how to spell that. I guess that's how that's spelled. Yeah. Accomplished, beautiful, inspired.
Oh, good. I love all these positive words. This is awesome. Lots of good things happening in the world. Good. Well, we're very happy. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're so glad that you're here. We're really enjoying these conversations with you. We love that you've been showing up. For those that you don't know, I am Kate Volman, the CEO of Floyd Consulting, and I get to be joined, as always, with Tony Ferrero, our Director of Training and Executive Coach Extraordinaire on our team. And so this is our third Culture Solution conversation. And we've really been loving the fact that you are all showing up, that you're asking really great questions, and also that we're hearing from you after these calls. We really love the engagement. We love hearing that people are actually applying the things that we're talking about. That's the whole purpose of doing this. We really, it's our goal to make sure that we're providing enough value to you that you're walking away with things that you can use that are really going to help you in your business. As you know, Floyd Consulting, our mission is to grow people. So that's what we do all day, every day. Everyone on the team has a real heart to serve. And we just have been really so encouraged by all the conversations that the coaches have been having with everyone. Our coaches have been really helping people through some real challenging decisions and times. And one of the things that we hear consistently is, oh my gosh, I just needed someone to talk to. I just needed someone to talk through something. And having that third party person to talk to about the challenges you're going through, the things that you're dealing with, and the decisions that you're making is so critical. And so we love the opportunity to do that. And we see some of our clients that are on the call, and we love that. And of course, we always open up for anyone that's watching an opportunity to chat with us and see how we can better serve you. All right, so we
Couple
had
of just housekeeping real quick. We can do
go
that
for it,
before
Tony.
we dive
Yep.
in. A reminder, we are also live streaming this on YouTube Live, the Floyd channel. So if you just search on YouTube, and I'm not sure if there's a direct link, Brooke, if you're on, if you can post that direct link, in case anybody needs it. If they're having any kind of sound difficulty, they can hop on over to YouTube and watch it there. So that's the first thing. And we definitely want questions today. There it is. The YouTube's up on the chat. We definitely want questions today so we can get those answered. And if you have a question as it comes up, please just put the question mark and then type what you want, what your question is, and that'll help us give us a heads up to see those. And we're trying some unique things today. We're never settle. We get one thing done, we're going to the next level. So we have excuse me, Sandra is our director of coaching, is moderating today. She'll be chatting a little bit more, be able to interact a little bit more with you on the chat, which is great. And we're also hoping to bring in someone who's had some success from some of the things we've been talking about near the end of the call today. So that's probably about a 30% chance that's going to work. So we'll see from there. So
it's more than that. It's way more than that.
I am letting people know what to expect. I am shrinking that expectation gap. So that I think that's it. I think that's all on the housekeeping. Thanks, Kate.
And just so everyone knows, I know sometimes people are like, "Oh, we can't hear, we can't hear, we can't." If you go on YouTube and stream it on YouTube, it actually is a better stream for some of those folks that are having a little bit of challenges. So we have had some people that have had more success on the YouTube side of it. So you can walk over there and you can still ask questions and everything and engage on YouTube. Also, if you do have any sound problems, you can it's usually just a quick refresh of your browser and you should be fine with that. So, all right. That being said, let's talk about we kind of we talked in the beginning last week. We talked about over communicating the plan, and obviously talking about how we have to have a plan, and then over communicating the plan. So we went a lot through that, and then today we're diving into principle number 5, which is let people know what you expect. And obviously, we know as leaders, it's really important that our people know what is expected of them. And as a leader, it's our job to know that. It's our job to understand that we're the ones that have to shrink that expectation gap. And Matthew talks about it in the book, which I love. It's like, I say this is my favorite principle, but I can't say that because they're all my favorite. But I love the expectation gap because the things that we've seen in organizations, the number of challenges we're able to alleviate because of that expectation gap and shrinking that gap is huge. So the expectation gap it's where this is what we expect, and then this is what actually happens. And then there's that gap, right? And there's got to be something that fills that gap. And that is the disappointment, anger, fear, loss of trust. And so we want to alleviate that gap so that does not happen. And fortunately, there are a number of ways to do that. And what's great is you guys are already doing some of those things, because when we're over communicating the plan, when people clearly know the plan, that leaves a lot less room for that expectation gap. So we're already doing some of that stuff. But there obviously are a lot more ways that we can do that. So that's what we kind of want to dive into today and share what some of those things are and some of the things that you guys can do.
Yep. We also felt it was really extremely timely with what's going on. We keep saying this is a great opportunity. We'll talk about in hiring about you can evaluate your hiring process now, but this is a great chance to see where in your organization, particularly if you're working remotely, where there are expectation gaps. And just on the simplest way, folks working at home, what is the expectation of you of how often you're available? Are you supposed to be online all the time? Somebody in just a couple of coaching calls they had just can kind of communicate this as an opening for what we're going to talk about. The one person said, "Look, I sent an email out and I don't hear from the person." It's an hour later, and so we talked a little bit about had set those expectations. Was the expectation is when if I email you, I really expect to hear back within an hour, or just like we are in the office. Is that the expectation? What are those expectations? And one I thought was so funny. It really hit home with me because this was an executive who's talking. He said, every time I send something to this person, an email, I get an email back from him fairly timely, but it's from his phone. And I didn't think anything of that, but he's like, so I'm wondering is the guy out and about? Is he at the store? Is he cutting his grass, doing those things? And just replying when I see him. And it didn't even occur to me. I mean, I'm sitting here right here. My phone is right here. And I do that all the time. Maybe I'm like video or doing it, and I'll get an email and I respond to it, just pick up my phone and respond to it, either talking into it. And it didn't hit me. I'm wondering if I'm giving that impression. So that was an expectation gap that, I don't know where you are, what's going on. I'm thinking, no, I'm right here. My phone is right there. So that's just a simple example, but I think it gets highlighted right now in the situation we're in right now.
Yeah. It's so funny. It kind of also just goes back to understanding personality styles and like understanding like that people see things very differently. We take information on very differently. So we've got to understand too how our people are communicating things and how we are making sure that they know what those expectations are. So
Yep.
before we kind of dive in, because one of the easiest ways to eliminate that expectation gap is to make sure that you have really effective role descriptions and scorecards. And so we want to go into having an effective scorecard. But before we do, let's just hear from you. We want to know kind of if you had to assess where you are right now, where you are with your team, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that everyone on your team knows exactly what is expected of them? Like they are doing the things that you think they should be doing. So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's rate some of these.
6, 5, 5, 7, 6. Wow. 7.5.
7, I like it.
There you go. A 10.
Ooh, Tom. Maybe we should bring Tom on to share some ways that they're doing that.
Yeah. And so the question was, how confident are you that you've communicated the expectations to people, or people know the expectations?
They know how confident are you that your team knows the expectations of them?
Yeah. Most are doing well. Can't figure out. Okay. No matter how I word it.
I don't know. That might be a discipline number 4.
Well, it's interesting, with this question. Do you want to talk about one way to get to the bottom of that real quick through the expectation exercise?
Oh yeah, the expectation exercise is the best. In fact, it was so funny. I was just I actually this morning took a walk with I was taking a walk with one of my friends, and we were talking about the expectation gap, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, because he's building a business now, and there's a lot of different teams, a lot of different things going on with the company. And I said, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that you can do right now is with the team that you have right now is you as the leader, you ask your team, your direct report, what do you think is expected of you? Like write down what you think is expected of you within your role. And then you, as the leader, you write, what do I think is expected of this person and of that role? What are those outcomes? And then you come together in a nice little conversation and you look at those together. You look at those together, and what's going to happen is you're going to see where the gaps are. You're going to see there's some missing things that you guys don't see things in the same way. And if you take it a step further, what's really great is if the leader says, hey, I want to know, what do you expect of me? What do you expect of me as the leader? because that way you're able to say, oh my gosh, this person thinks I'm supposed to do this for them. No, no, that's
Yep.
not at all. So there's a lot of room to have a really good conversation, really productive conversation to kind of get out of that gap and
Yep.
really start to see a lot more progress.
Right. And so simple. I mean, we do that exercise exactly at our live Don't Just Manage Coach training. And we did that the last one we did. Had a person and their manager at the same table and asked them to do it in front of everybody. And they were pretty close. They were pretty much on the same page, but even just the way they said it was a little different. And I think that's so important. But so if you think, I mean, everyone, I didn't see, there were a couple under 5, but if you really have the courage to find out if that's the case, do that exercise. And then maybe it might be higher. It might be the same. You may have a real good understanding of that, but oftentimes there is a gap, even if it's small, and we know how those cracks just kind of keep, building to go from there. I think maybe Kate, you mentioned it before, is we talked about a strategic plan last time and how, all these principles are so interrelated. So you mentioned, the starting point for expectations are role descriptions for everyone. Now, clearly, role descriptions play a big part when we go to hire someone, but that flows all the way through, and it all starts with the mission. Here's the mission of what our organization is. Our strategic plan is how we're going to carry it out. But the role descriptions allow people to know not what their job is, but what their role in the mission is. So if this is the mission and this is the plan, what do you want me to do? What is my role in that? Because, as it says in the book, people just act differently when they're on the mission than when they just have a job. So if I know what my role is in the big picture of the organization, then I have an idea of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that, I think, is key with the expectations, because if I don't, then everything is an expectation gap. Why am I doing this report? Why am I supposed to be doing this? What purpose does this possibly have? I'm just getting busy work from my boss, whatever that might be. So I think that's important, that these the expectation gap can be shrunk down if everyone knows their role in fulfilling the mission and how it's carried out with their strategic plan. So that's how all these things are tied together. And so the good news here is that if you do one of these principles, it tends to help in another area because they're so interrelated. And we see
Yeah.
that all the time. We ask people, do they know their role? If do they know their role? Can they accept their role? Are you sure they know their role? And, we talked about that last time. How many times I just heard that with a client? I don't know how many times I have to tell them, one more, or they're always saying, why do I have to do this? Why? Well, you have to explain the role. This is your role in fulfilling the mission through the strategic plan. That's why we hired you. And so, anything you want to add to that you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think what this also does is it really takes the personal out of the business, right? Like you have a much more productive conversation with people because it becomes about the mission and it becomes about the role. It's not an attack on someone. And that's what's really beneficial for these kinds of conversations, because when you can make it around the work, the expectations, what needs to happen, and the why behind it, it just takes some of those feelings out of it, which sometimes people can get really caught up in the, oh, this person is kind of, it's about me. Well, no, this is just, with, if we're going to achieve our mission, this role, these are the things that need to happen in order for us to get there, and that's what's expected of you. And then it goes into, hey, like you said, Tony, like, then sometimes when we do these expectation gap activities, it really does uncover sometimes it uncovers this person's not in the right role. They're great to be on the team, but now that we've really identified, like, we have this gap, sometimes, not always, usually you can close the gap and things move forward, but there is sometimes where people say, hey, I've kind of figured out this I maybe put this person in the wrong role, but they're great, so let's figure out where else we can put them.
Right.
So it
Yep.
does open up a lot, but everything that it opens up, and that what we're able to discover by uncovering all this stuff from people is positive, because it's putting everyone in the right direction, everyone, for the
Right.
organization and for the
Yep.
individual people. And so So yeah,
Yeah,
it all works together.
yep. Two comments that are really important here. Paul mentioned it's true that people can see where their unique gifts really fill in the organization. So
Yeah.
that is, and that nothing, if someone knows that their gifts are uniquely contributing to the mission, that just raises how they feel about what they're doing. There was a question that came up about new team members, people coming on, they're not the leaders, but they're reports. And I'm assuming it's that, how do you make sure that they know their expectations? But that's really where if someone, when someone is hired, ultimately through the hiring process, they should be very clear as to what the role description is. That comes from the scorecard, which we'll start talking about. Then during the interview, they're going to be asked the questions, and they're going to be able to answer how they would fulfill this role. So coming out of being hired, people should actually have a real clear idea of what their role is, because if you're doing the hiring the right way, because they've been answering the questions, this is exactly what the scorecard for this job is. And if they're a match for that, then coming out, they should know this is what I was hired to do, and this is what I'm going to be evaluated on. And it just eliminates any of those expectations. Now, sure, there might be some like interactive things around the office. There are expectations that aren't clearly in there, but I would argue that, the cultural part of the interview, that's part of the scorecard also. So that people are, being flexible is part of the role of this mission. And so if you've done that well, and you've created those role descriptions, and you've created a scorecard from the role descriptions, then guess what? Then your evaluative tools, your appraisals come right from the scorecard. And so everybody's completely on the same page. So that's how I would answer that question about new people. And so, Martin, if I haven't answered that correctly, let me know if it was something else. But
so let's kind of go through, because the next couple of things that we want to talk about today are going to really help to alleviate that for whether they are a new team member or you're just kind of in a phase of reevaluating the team and where everyone is. So let's talk about that scorecard. So write in the comments right now, do you have a scorecard for every position at the company? Does everybody have a scorecard? Okay. So there's a lot.
Does anyone?
Yeah, right. Maybe we should reframe the question. Does anyone have a scorecard? Yes, it's hidden in the vault. I love it. That's awesome.
Oh, there are a few, sure. Yes, for leadership, and some departments do as well, but not all. Okay.
Good.
What our customers measure. Huh. Okay.
All right, good. So look, this is a huge opportunity for right now today. We can start to incorporate some of these scorecards. And we kind of skipped over role descriptions. I guess we should never assume. We hope that every role in your organization, there is a role description. In fact, we actually encourage, we shouldn't even be hiring or thinking about hiring a position unless we have a role description. What is that role supposed to do? Then we take it a little bit deeper into a scorecard. And the scorecard is going back to what Tony was talking about, is what are the things that I'm going to be evaluated on? What are the things that I know that I need to do in order to fulfill my role? So Tony, let's talk a little bit about what is needed in an effective scorecard. Because some people might be thinking, I don't have one. And quite honestly, I don't even know what that looks like. And I don't know what it is.
Yep. Well, let me take a very simple example, because oftentimes we'll do it's easy, I think, for people to imagine, say, a member of a sales team. Here's the scorecard. We expect sales in the Midwest to be at this number. That's the scorecard. And those are incredibly valuable. But then often people say, well, what about positions that don't have, okay, well, let's take, for example, a receptionist. Or so receptionist, one place that I coached, that person is called the director of first impressions, right? Which is an interesting title for that. Now, a job description for that person might be that they answer the phones. They answer incoming calls. That's the job description. Now, for someone to fulfill that job description, They could be the most cantankerous, toxic person on the phone, but they have answered every one of those calls. Now, a role description might speak more to, right? What we want to happen is your job is to create a positive first impression with people who call this organization and direct them to the proper person to get their inquiry solved. So that's what the role is, which you can put it in, which leads ultimately to you name it, more sales, more whatever that might be. So that's her role, that he or she knows when the phone call comes in. My role is to make sure that, number one, I give a first impression. Number two, that I direct a person to the right department. So then a scorecard coming off that, just that little bit of it could be, I mean, you can do whatever metric you want, whether it's, an external, some sort of external audit in which you're asking people, how was your first impression at company X? You can just put that as part of a survey, and that can give you some tangible parts. You do the internal survey, that how are you, do you feel like the calls directed to you are getting to are you the right person to get these calls? How is that? What is your idea? So people internal from the organization, and you can measure those things. And so something that seems very kind of loose in terms of, well, I answer the phone, you go from the job description, which is be here at 8, leave at 5, answer the phone, to make a good impression, get people to where they need to be. That's your role in this long line of things that happen. And we're going to ask people how their first impression was when they called, and we're going to ask internally, is that, are you getting the right calls that are coming through to you, and those things. So it can be done. And I think someone reacts totally different when they understand that a $200,000 sale might begin with, good morning, how can I help you today? Or whatever that might be, and organizing doing that. So help answer that question a little bit. So that's on that level, kind of a macro level. We can talk about the scorecard a little bit more micro if you want to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good overview. I mean, I think when we look at it as almost like, it's smart, right? They are smart goals, like in a sense, like each box is filled with something that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. It's like if that's what kind of differentiates a really good scorecard versus one that's just more like kind of, oh, well, maybe we'll get there.
Right.
And I know Robert says, I think it's very valuable to distinguish leading metrics versus lagging metrics. And that's a really good point. So, for example, in a scorecard for, let's say, a salesperson, like the director of sales or whatever, that something on the scorecard might be to increase revenue by X each quarter, or to obtain X amount of clients, or X amount of like $250,000 clients per quarter or per year, whatever that looks like. So that's kind of what they're being evaluated on. Now, the leading indicators are, okay, they have to figure out, how am I going to reach that goal every quarter? How many presentations do I have to do? How many calls do I have to make? How many network events do I have to attend? How many referrals do I have to get? That's where those leading indicators come into play. So when we have a scorecard, we can then coach our team to figure out what activities need to happen, so that at the end of a quarter, those things we can say yes or no, we did get them accomplished. So that is a really important thing to remember, those leading versus lagging indicators.
And that's a huge point. I mean, the scorecard is a metric of what needs to be accomplished to fulfill the mission, and not just what do you do. It's what you accomplish. And that's interesting. You were saying, I was just reading because I was creating some dashboards, or trying to, in our at RCM, because I was looking at from my strategic plan, which is right here on my desk. I've said that before. So from there, we sat down, we created the plan, and said, well, we're going to need this many leads to lead to this many. So I was trying to figure out some reporting inside the system. And I was reading an article from our vendor about that. And it mentioned that, sometimes when you look at your sales cycle, your pipeline, you have to be careful with those metrics, because some folks will fill the pipeline with hope rather than with actual, qualified leads. And so you can end up with a pipeline that has a bunch of, nowhere near close, just to fill those numbers of leads, but the result in sales aren't aren't there. And the other side is, folks maybe aren't putting the leads in as much, so that you can get caught up in that activity. If my activity is to generate leads, I'll do that all day, but my scorecard should say my sales go up by whatever percent or whatever that might be. So, like John Wooden said, the scorecard helps us differentiate between activity and achievement, and don't mix those two up. The scorecard's about achievement, the person's achievement, and how then, but that's where the role description comes in. If I do these things, it should be advanced. That's my role in advancing the mission. So that should just be completely clear. We do this. This is how we're going to do it in our plan. I've been hired to do this because this is how it fulfills that little piece of the mission.
Yeah. That's a good. So Nicole asks, are scorecards built by role or by person? Which is an interesting question.
My answer, but you go ahead.
So yeah, well, I mean, yeah, so we have the mission of the organization, we have the role descriptions, right? What needs to happen in each of those roles. So the scorecard, it's about the role, like what needs to happen in that role. This allows us to find the right person, right? Like we have to, like the role, it doesn't matter, we're not catering a role description to what the person can do. We have to cater to what is necessary in the role in order to fulfill the mission. So Tony, going back to your point of like, see how everything works together. We've got to have a mission. We've got to have a plan. We've got to over communicate. We have to have those clear expectations because it's always about the mission, 100% about the mission. And so every role description, that's why it's so important to have the job description and then the role description. And then only with that, and we'll talk about that when we get to the hiring process, but that is the only way to make really great hires.
And I think that's a great point here. On the surface, stepping back, you look at that and say, well, of course the description has to be for, what needs to be done. And it's not about the person. It's easy to say that from, however far, but from however far apart. But, I can tell you, we were, Sandra and I were working and we watched an exercise with a company where they were projecting out their org chart 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and to see how, person oriented that got. Well, we really need another manager, but this person, he or she's not quite ready. So we're going to move this is really the value of a coach, to be able to ask the question totally removed from the situation. And well, does it make sense to add this other position when really what you're saying is this person can't do it? Maybe they should be. And because we are involved with our people deeply on a human level, and it can get really intertwined when we don't have another voice. So I'll just put that little plug in for to have a coach to say, well, is that really the best thing for this? And understanding that there's people involved. So, but I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but when you start dealing with people in positions, you can get kind of lured into that, where we make not excuses, but we construct roles to fit the people. Like I saw in there, someone said that all our calls go to voicemail because the receptionist doesn't like to answer the phone. Well, we start over time, we start creating role descriptions based on a person. So if that keeps going, pretty soon the receptionist role description is, make sure all the calls go to voicemail because she just doesn't like to answer call. Those things build up, and they're blind spots. Look, no one sets out to say, I'm going to set all the role descriptions to make everybody happy, regardless of how they help fulfill our mission. So how do they get there? Well, we have some blind spots with people, and that's okay. But that's, again, the value of a coach who can say, why did what was around that decision? And then you're like, oh, I guess the scales come off.
That's why the best companies, think about like the best companies, the only way they're able to scale is because they have all this stuff in place. They're not making those changes with role description scorecard. Like they know very clearly, like, in order for my company to move forward, this is what we need, this is who we need, these are the metrics that we have to get to. It's it's very clear cut. And so, and again, it's another opportunity with people that I think is so interesting, is that as people grow, they might grow into a different role. they might grow into a different into a something within the
Yep.
organization, but that really serves them well. And it's an opportunity for the company to grow and for that person to grow, because hey, not everyone is meant to be in that role forever. Not everyone might is meant to even be at that company forever. So these are really great opportunities, as long as we're when we have these things set in place. These are the metrics that we get to use on how to even navigate our people
Right.
through the organization.
Yep. And I think it's probably because I just saw a couple things that flowed through here. It's very easy, as I said, to look at scorecards as hard metrics, but you should also, part of your scorecard should be cultural metrics. How the person exhibits the three qualities that you want every person in your organization to have. So this isn't all numbers in the sense they're all measurable, but they include what kind of team member the person is, those things, how they fit into the culture, how they add to the culture. So a scorecard really includes all of that. And those are things you should be figuring out in the hiring process.
Yeah.
Before we bring our guest on, I did put a poll today, so we can check it real quick, because we do want to talk a little bit about when to do performance appraisals, right? I think we talked on that, or at least to get an idea. We can certainly carry that conversation over. But I'm just curious in terms of performance reviews. Just a quick one. There's only 3 on here. The choice is: do you do yours in your organization either done annually, quarterly, or the next one will be the first one? So what are the 3 choices? If you click on the polls and let us know, quarterly, annually, or the next one will be the first one.
And while we're
So,
waiting for those,
yep.
Nicole asked, our role descriptions are very task oriented and don't include coaching leadership milestones. So that just kind of goes back to what Tony was talking about, being a cultural fit and the values of the organization. Our the three things that we look for in everyone we hired is committed, coachable, and aware. Committed, coachable, and aware. So our people, we really need people who are coachable, right? Like, we grow people, therefore our team better be coachable themselves if we're going to be coaching. And so putting those things into place within the scorecard and identifying what those values are for you. Is growth important? Is leadership important? Is becoming a better coaching leader important? If those things are important, then those really need to be in those in that kind of a description. Like, you're really helping your team grow. You're able to build a team. All of those, depending on where they are in the organization. But if they're on the leadership team and you expect them to grow leaders, those things have to have a place somewhere in that role description.
So about 57% of people, about half of you responded, 57% of people do annually, a third of people quarterly, and 11% of people are still waiting for the first one to happen. So do you want to speak just a little bit, Kate? I'm going to work on this technical part about the importance of quarterly versus annually, at least the way we view that.
Yeah, so we included the annual reviews obviously in this discussion, because it's now you have your scorecard, and then having those annual reviews, having those quarterly reviews are so important, because most organizations still have an annual review, right? So we're waiting an entire year to have a sit down with our people to talk about how they're doing, how they've progressed, are they meeting the expectations of with their role description. So having a quarterly review is an opportunity to shrink that gap. It's an opportunity for you to sit face to face with your team and have a great conversation around what's working well, what's not working, what looking at. It gives you an opportunity to look at that role description, look at that scorecard, and say, hey, where are we at? Are these things getting done? And some people say, well, quarterly just seems like it's way too much, but it doesn't have to be this huge sit down 2 hour or even an hour long discussion. It really is just coming together and saying, hey, what's going on with you? What's
Yep.
been the last 3 months? And this, again, it's an opportunity for you to uncover some of those gaps and to make sure that things are moving forward. So kind of going back to the comment on the leading and lagging indicators, quarterly allows us to identify the lagging indicators so that we can help put those leading indicators in and to be more successful in making sure that we're actually accomplishing our goals and the mission of the organization. And so if you aren't doing what is going on,
Something's happened. Okay.
if you aren't doing quarterly reviews, we highly encourage you to start doing them. And again, make them short and sweet. Oh gosh, we have some tech issues happening.
Okay, let me just ask this. I'm sorry, John, are you there? John, can you hear me? Okay, well, that's not.
Oh, maybe you're right, Tony, about the 30%.
Yep. Well, I got that much. I got him 30% on there. Okay. All right. Well, John, we're going to need you to step out if you can. I'm not sure how I do that.
Oh gosh, we are so sorry, guys.
Okay. All right. I think he's going to. Well, John is a presenter. John, yeah, go ahead and. There we go. Maybe. Okay. All right. We're going to have to drop John here. So, yep. Okay. He's off right. Unfortunately, we were going to have John Schlosser and Brian Magliano come on, who are some clients of ours but we'll reschedule that for next week. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but what didn't happen. But I set the expectation. I did set the expectation.
You actually said 30, and I had more faith that it would actually happen. So
yeah, we'll figure it out.
For everybody's ears. Oh gosh. Okay. Lots happening today.
Okay.
Lots of tech stuff happening today. Yeah. So we'll reschedule that situation. And in the meantime, if anyone has any questions or things that they want us to answer that we've talked through today, please. Oh, Roger says, have him log off and try again. Maybe he's double logged in.
Yep. Well, I'm not sure here. Okay.
Thanks, Roger.
John, we'll have you go ahead and just drop out of the meeting maybe. And maybe that'll end it here. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong here, but.
Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions, please just comment. Make sure you add 2 question marks before the question and then afterwards so that we can see it's a question. John asked,
yeah, go ahead. I'm reading.
Good question. How do you deal with a staff member that was originally hired when the firm was small and hasn't adapted to the current needs and invested in the current mission? The firm has outgrown them.
Yeah, I think there was a similar question on there too about, the person you can't repurpose them or repurpose their role and there isn't another role for them. Well, there has to be a point. What should be happening is if the person's not meeting those expectations, they should know that. And no one wants to continue in a role that they're not suited for. So it really is both the professionally correct and the humanly charitable thing to do to help somebody move on. And and hopefully that person understands that and you've had those conversations with that, but ultimately the role of business is to be in business. And those are tough decisions, but I think it's best on everybody's part to have somebody just keep going where they're not going to fill a role. They're not going to effectively fill the role. Who wants to go to work knowing they do not have a chance to fill the role in the organization? And so I think we sometimes worry about the human level of things, but I think being honest with a person and having gone through those evaluations, those reviews, and trying to see if there's a way to do that. When you put that effort in, then you've done everything you can as a company, as an organization. You do what you can to help somebody to move into something that's going to be better for them ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember it was so I remember years ago, the first time I had to, no one firing someone is the worst thing ever. It's so horrible, but I remember when we had to let someone go, and of course she was very upset, and it was exactly that. Like, she just wasn't able to fulfill the role. And honestly, like, it was my fault. I made the wrong hire, and then tried to kind of coach her through it. Obviously hindsight is 2020. I didn't know I was making a bad hire. And I remember like a year and a half later, she actually came into my office and said, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for what you did for me, because I wasn't happy. I was trying so hard and it just wasn't working. And she ended up in a role that she really, really loved in a completely different industry.
Yep.
And it worked out really well. So those are, that's kind of a
Yep.
gift that we can give to people.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
oh, go ahead.
And there's an expression that the people you fire never give you as much difficulty as people you don't.
Oh,
I mean, to continue to
isn't
deal with
that the
something
truth?
is successful. We maybe should just quickly, in the like minute we have left, the idea that people can get threatened by scorecards being implemented, and I think that's probably, if you just walked in and said, now here's the scorecard, because the way you implement that's going to be pretty important to how that's perceived. But then also, folks should have a role in creating that scorecard, if not creating it themselves, right, Kate? I mean, so that's one way for people to understand, and that goes back to the expectation. If you ask someone what a scorecard for their role would look like, if you don't have one right now, and you get it back and it's completely different than what you would have put, then you know where your starting point is. But if you are on the same page, then that person should be energized about it. And if you have the right people, they're going to be excited about knowing I can achieve this, and I can fulfill my role in the mission. So I think there has to be a piece that the people are involved in that.
I agree, and I also think it goes back to a mission. It's about the mission, and then when we can bring conversations back to the mission of the organization, again, it's not about them. It's not, this is about, what do we need to do in order to fulfill the mission? Like, that's our job. That's everyone's role, no matter if they're the leadership or someone who just started. Everyone's role is, it has to contribute to fulfilling that mission. So when we can make it around mission, and also just kind of like, to Tony's point, just making it about that it's about the success for them. People, I we really believe, like, if you have the right people, they enjoy their work. They want to make a difference. They want to do good work. People want to do good work when they're in the right role.
Yep.
And so we want to know what that looks like. When we have a scorecard, it gives us less pressure of thinking, oh my gosh, how how does what is my leader thinking about me,
Right.
right? like
Yep.
like I think we've talked about in the past.
Absolutely.
It's like, how many people are going home thinking, oh my gosh, I'm killing it at the office, and their leader is going home being like, oh my god, they are killing me. It's
Right.
like, we want to make sure
Yep.
that we're on point with each other. And I think
Absolutely.
everybody, the leader and the person that reports to that person,
Right.
is it's oh my gosh, so you have such a more fulfilling way of
Yep.
coming into the office every day,
Yep.
or
And I'll
working from
put
home every day, which
yep.
is now
Yeah.
what we are.
And I'll put that final plug in for, extreme ownership. Right now, people will say, well, my boss, I don't know what to evaluate. What would happen then if you don't have a scorecard of saying, look, I put this together. This is what I think I'm supposed to be doing to fulfill my role. Here's what I see my role as, and here are the metrics I think, or here's what my scorecard would look like. Are we on the right page? And again, the person's either going to go, yeah, that's it, keep going, this is great, appreciate it, or the other way, where it's not so positive. But if it's not so positive, then it gives you some feedback in terms of maybe who you're working at. So you don't want to throw it down there. Hey, I saw this webinar. We're doing this. You should be doing this, boss. And this is what you should be doing. Probably not the best approach, but just saying, for my own benefit, I'm trying to make sure I'm working on the right things. You got any feedback on this? If not, I'm going to keep going and make sense. So, but I think all of that, as I look at the clock here, kind of points back to, particularly now, I mean, what we're talking about is treating people like people,
Mhm.
and giving them respect, but we just get wrapped up, and we lose sight of people because we're focused on results, or we lose sight of results because we focus on people too much. And so, so what's the answer there? Well, one of the answers, I think, is obviously having that third voice to just say, have you thought about this? why are you doing this? And I just can't overestimate how having someone to talk to, having someone to walk through decisions with, is so important. So I am, as we've done in each of the weeks, I'm just putting up the offer that folks to speak with a coach now by clicking on that button. That'll set you up to get in our queue, and we'll have a coach call you right back. But also then organizationally, how we can work with you, because all of these principles we're laying out, you can take them, you can run with them, and do an okay job. But there are just nuances to that and plans. And I'm already seeing some of the questions. Do you have an idea about this? How about this? To be able to talk those things through and to have an impartial voice to walk you through that, I think is invaluable. So please take advantage of clicking on that button so that we can talk to you, get some specific questions answered, and then figure out how we can work together to make your organization really dynamic in the best version of itself.
Yeah, and we just want to thank you all so much again for joining us today. We had some really, really great questions. Honestly, just really good ones. I know there are quite a few that are coming in right now that we're not able to answer, but please, that's why we offer the call to talk to one of our coaches so that you can hear a little bit more about how we can help you handle some of these situations. So please take us up on that offer. And also, our mission is to grow people, and that is what we do. That is what we're trying to do every day. And so we love the conversation with you. We love that you're showing up. We love the questions that you're getting asked. We also know that you are surrounded by other really great leaders and organizations. And so please let them know about our culture solution conversations. Please invite them along. We would love to help more people grow. We would love to continue these conversations every week, and let us know too what questions you have in advance. If there's things that you want us to talk about, if there's things that you want us to touch on, we're here to support you. We want to provide as much value as we can. We'll kind of make these, we'll continue to do these as long as you guys show up and you're getting value from them. We want to do them. So please let us know in the comments right now. Do you find these valuable? Should we keep doing them? Do you have any topics that you want to us to cover? So let us know right now in the comments if you find these valuable. We just want to make sure that we're giving you all what you need, and let us know if there's any specific topics that we can provide for you.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, we will, right now we're planning on being here next Wednesday, right? And,
Yes,
sign up
we'll work
wise,
through
we're,
some of our tech
uh,
issues and be ready
yes.
to go next week. And thank you all again for joining us. And we will see you next Wednesday. It's every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So mark it on your calendar and you'll get the email from us. But you can also, we'll send you a link that you can kind of pre-register as well. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week.